if those are coming in can grab a seat or they want to sit down, we will get started since it's 6:01. This is a whole of council, and tonight we'll have a presentation. I believe the agenda is a presentation by the consultants over the intersection at 41 Stanfield and Experiment Farm, the advantages of both options. Then we will proceed into questions from council. Be patient with us. And then we'll have questions from the public or input from the public. My only request on that, I will give you 5 minutes to come to the podium and give your views. We would like to hear from as many people as want to speak. So if you have 4 or 5 points, you're glad to make them, or 20 or whatever. But if you become redundant on a point or two, I will probably squeeze your 5 minutes to move along to the next person. I hope that doesn't offend anybody, but we're going to do that for everybody to get as much input as we can get. Thank you. We have our consultants right into it. Go to it. Jill?
Jill Rhodes, City Engineer. So tonight we have American Structure Point. Tony and Goroff are 2 presenters. So I'll just hand it over to them so we can get into the presentation and get into question and answers. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill.
Good evening. My name's Tony. My name's Tony Lenhart with American Structure Point. I'm the roadway project manager. With me is Gaurav Kashyap. He's our traffic engineer. We did a study of the intersection of 41 Stanfield and Experiment Farms. So I guess we go to the next slide. Some project history to date. So this study has been going on for over 4 years now. It first started as an intersection improvement study where we were hired by the city to evaluate, what are different options that we could look at this intersection. Once we determined that yes, improvements were needed, we looked at a safety study. So we analyzed all the crash data at the intersection itself, pulled that together. We did some recounts after COVID because the initial counts came during the COVID years. We reanalyzed that traffic data, and then we pulled together alternative analysis based on a signal improvement, a roundabout improvement. We had a couple of different varieties, but we settled on a traditional roundabout as the best of those, and then went through an analysis process to determine, which one would make the best sense at this intersection. Next slide. So this is the project area. The area focused is in the red circle, South Stanfield, Experiment Farm, and West Main Street. This is a heavy commercial corridor. There's a lot of businesses, a lot of heavy traffic movers in there. You have a Walmart, Meijer, Lowe's, a lot of restaurants in the area. So you have a lot of people not only using this as a through route, off of I-75, but also a lot of destination traffic going to shopping, going to eating. So there's a lot of different traffic movements that are happening here. Next slide. So we first look at the existing conditions. The average daily traffic on West Main Street is about 23,000. Experiment Farm has 7,300, and South Stanfield has about 9,800 traffics per day. The speed limit's 40 miles per hour on West Main, 35 miles per hour on Experiment Farm and South Stanfield. As we noted, it's a existing traffic signal on a span wire without backplates. Next slide. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Garb. He's going to go through kind of the traffic data and crash analysis that we did with this.
Thank you, Tony. I want to start with crash data here because I think it is one of the most important part of what we are presenting tonight. The chart here breaks down crashes at this intersection by severity by year. What I want you to notice here is that there's not a spike caused by one bad year or one unusual event. The pattern is consistent across the entire study period. Injury crashes are occurring every year, which definitely tells us that there is a safety problem at this intersection. And that is exactly what this project is designed to fix. Next slide. When we break down the crashes by type, two categories stand out: angle crashes and rear-end crashes. Together, they account for large majority of incidents at this location. Rear-end crashes happen when a driver does not anticipate a vehicle stopping ahead at the signal, which is obviously increased by the lack of backplates. And for reference, backplates are, the flat panels that you put behind the signal heads has a retroreflective border around it, which helps with the visibility of signal under nighttime conditions. Tony mentioned about 40 miles per hour speed limit on West Main Street. Obviously, that's a big factor when you start looking at angle crashes because you have people running the red light, and that results into people misjudging the gaps and leading into those angle crashes. Here is why it matters for what is to come next and what we are going to be talking about is both of these crash types are directly addressed by the geometry of a roundabout. Roundabout eliminates the crossing movement entirely when there are no vehicles traveling straight through in conflicting directions. Rear-end crashes drop as well because you don't have any red phases, which result in abrupt stops. Something which is very interesting in that graphic to the right here is with the number of rear-end crashes that you typically associate with a signal. Ohio statewide, you have 22% rear-end crashes on an average. In the city of Troy, there are 27% rear-end crashes of the total crashes, whereas at this signal, you have 53% rear-end crashes happening. And that is a direct correlation between the signal that is out there and the type of crash. Next slide, please. So the existing conditions in regards to pedestrian crossing. So if you look at the four corners of the intersection, you have crossing distance for pedestrians that range from 88 feet to 102 feet. And typical walking speed for pedestrians is around 3 to 4 feet per second, which kind of tells you that it's going to take an average pedestrian anywhere between 25 to 35 seconds to make that crossing through the crosswalk. Again, like from a number standpoint, that might look low, but that's a significant exposure time when you're looking at elderly resident, a child, or someone with a mobility challenge. Next slide, please. Beyond safety, this intersection also has a congestion problem. Currently, the peak hour travel time through the corridor, and when I say the corridor, it starts all the way from the east at the Troy Town Drive intersection and goes to the west at the Western Meyer access signal. The travel time through the corridor with the existing signal is 106 seconds. And with the proposed improvements, that drops to 81 seconds. So you're looking at 25 seconds of travel time savings per trip. Now, 25 seconds, when you look at it in isolation, might sound like a small number, but consider this intersection as it processes thousands of vehicular trips every day, and that accounts for a lot of travel time savings, especially when you have parents dropping kids to school, businesses with delivery needs, and also for emergency vehicles that use West Main Street as a primary response corridor. Next slide. Now, to the purpose and need, the purpose of this project really is to improve safety and reduce congestion for the traveling public at the intersection of West Main Street and Experiment Farm Road. Everything that we have shown you up to this point, the crash history, the collision patterns, the pedestrian exposure, and the congestion data, that is really the need. The alternatives that we are about to share helps us solve those issues. Next slide, please. Now, here are some of the capacity analysis improvements for the three scenarios. We have the no-build condition here, which is the existing signal. Then we have a scenario for an improved signal with some addition of turn lanes and signal timing adjustments. And the third scenario is the roundabout. Under the no-build condition, I'd like you to focus on the northbound approach, which is the Stanfield Road. Currently, it experiences 67.4 seconds of delay per vehicle. The improved signal with some signal timing adjustments and turn lanes would improve that to 42.5 seconds, which is a 37% reduction. The roundabout brings it down to 26.5 seconds, which is a 61% reduction. At overall intersection level, the improved signal improves slightly better than the roundabout in this matrix. It's a total of 11% reduction versus a 4% reduction with the roundabout. Next slide. Probably have to click on that. So we have the simulation videos here which compare the operation of both alternatives, and I think they bring the table that I walked you through to life. So here is the improved signal situation. As you can see, with the improved signal, you still have that stop condition where vehicles do have to come to a stop. And consider this as a corridor with multiple signals. There is almost that situation of vehicles with random arrivals, and that kind of leads to significant queuing at the intersection. You could probably go to the next slide. Now, this is with the proposed roundabout. Now, as you would expect with the roundabout, it's more of a free-flowing condition because you have drivers that come to the roundabout at slow speed. They yield to incoming vehicle that is circulating around the roundabout, and then find gaps and make that turn. So the queuing issue over here is comparatively lower compared to a signal. And the other thing to consider is also the fact that you're looking at slow-moving queue with a roundabout versus like a stopped queue at the signal. Next slide. Yep. Now this slide here kind of gets into the safety improvements. So crash types are basically categorized into 5 different categories. There is fatal crash, you have serious injury crash, then you have suspected minor injury crash, which essentially means visible injuries such as bruises, cuts, possible injury, which is complaint of pain, discomfort with no visible injury, and then you have property damage only. Obviously, property damage only is the no to zero severity, if you will. So looking at the comparison between the 3 scenarios here, what clearly stands out is the fact that roundabouts provide the greatest benefit when it comes to reducing the severity of the crash. So all your fatal, serious injury, all the injury crashes, it shows a much better performance compared to a signal. From property damage only standpoint, you expect a roundabout to have a slightly higher number when it comes to property damage only crashes. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tony to talk about the geometrics for the proposed alternatives.
Thanks, Gaurav. So as we mentioned before, we looked at 2 proposed scenarios for improvement. One would be a proposed signal The main highlights of those improvements would be an additional westbound right turn lane. We'd be extending the eastbound left turn lane. We'd be adding an additional southbound right turn lane, extending the southbound left turn lane, and providing access management along the corridor to prevent those left outs from popping out in front of people. So you can see it's similar to the existing condition, but we are optimizing the signal timing, and we're adding those additional turning lanes to help get more of the free flow traffic through the intersection. Next slide. The second alternative is the roundabout alternative. This is two-lane approach on each entry with the two-lane exit on all of it except for Experiment Farm. What this does is help balance the traffic flow that's coming in. It allows vehicles to enter the roundabout without having to come to a stop condition. You'd be coming to a yield condition. You'd be approaching the signal, or you'd be approaching the existing signal intersection at a slower moving, 15, 20 mile per hour design speed going through it. So you don't have those vehicles that are traveling 40, 45 miles per hour trying to beat the yellow light, conflicting with the car coming out of the Stanfield or Experiment Farm Road. It also helps with the geometry. As you can see, there's curvature leading in and out of the road or out of the intersection. What that does is help initiate to the driver that, hey, you're coming up to an intersection. The curvature slows you down as you're coming, allows you to make a safe yielding movement into the intersection and then clear. And as Gaurav mentioned, you don't have the conflicting movement of pulling out or a left turn in front of vehicles. All traffic is moving in a counterclockwise fashion. It avoids a lot of existing conflict locations and helps keep traffic moving safely and efficiently. Next slide. Part of this analysis also was coming up with a preliminary cost estimate. From both alternatives you can see on the board, they have similar footprint sizes. And they also have, the signal has a little bit more pavement cost because there's more turn lanes. The roundabout has some additional curb costs and landscaping features. Both of them ultimately come out, once you add in contingency, inflation, about the $4.27 million for the signal and $4.29 million for the roundabout. So very similar costs when you look at the proposed condition. Next slide. What you don't see in that is the long-term maintenance costs or the operational costs. So both total construction costs are about the same. Annualized maintenance costs with signals average about $10,000 a year. That accounts for the signal power, bulb replacement, regular timing, lighting of the intersection, and then signal equipment has a service life of about 10 years. So every 10 years you got to replace all that equipment that's in there. With a roundabout, there's much less power just for the lighting in the intersection. You do have some annual maintenance landscaping costs, but those average to be about $1,500 a year. And the service life of a roundabout is 20 years. So you don't have to do that interim improvement as you go. So while they're both initial about the same cost, over year end, you have a lot more savings with the roundabout. Next slide. And this, if you can tell by our slides that we've gone through, our recommendation is to move forward with the traditional roundabout. There's different reasons why we highlighted on the safety. There are roundabouts are proven safety countermeasures. They help reduce crash severity. They mitigate rear end and angle crash patterns, which are the two most prevalent at this intersection. As you can see, they get about 70% fewer crashes versus an existing signal. Traffic flow, as Gaurav mentioned, you don't have that come to a stop and have to wait for the right or red light to turn to green to go. It helps balance the traffic flow across all four legs. As you can see by the queuing, Stanfield and Experiment Farm had really long queues as you're waiting to allow the West Main Street traffic to go through. What the roundabout does is balances that. You allow more gaps for traffic to get in. So while the West Main Street delays come up a couple seconds, you're significantly reducing your side roads as Experiment Farm and South Stanfield. Pedestrians, there's a lot of pedestrian improvements in the area, shared use paths, sidewalks. Roundabouts are safer for pedestrians. When you cross, you only have to look in one direction from traffic coming from one direction. You don't have to cross the 100 feet or be exposed for 30 seconds to traffic coming from any direction at high speeds. You cross 2 lanes at most at one time. You're in a safe refuge island. You cross the other one only having to look for one direction. It also removes or eliminates those. You have a walk signal, but then a car wants to turn turn right on red, or cars that run the intersection. Maintenance, there's lower long-term cost, as we just showed. There's no signal hardware or electrical equipment to depend on, and they operate regardless of power. So if you have a power or a storm comes through, knocks out power through the intersection, they still work just as they would with power. Next slide. I'll bring Gaurav back up here. We've done several similar intersections to this throughout the state, 3 that we'll highlight here. The first one is Plainfield Road and Hunt Road in Blue Ash, where we did a similar study for them. We implemented, this was built in 23? Yep. In 23. So we have a good 2-3 years of traffic data showing, what we thought was going to happen actually does happen. So I'll let Gaurav get into that.
Yeah, so with this intersection as well, we kind of started looking at it all the way back in 2012. And at the time, this intersection was 13th highest crash risk intersection in the state of Ohio. It had a lot of injury crashes, and so kind of gives you like a before condition with the existing signal. You had 20% injury crashes at that intersection between 2012 to 2022 and 2023 when the roundabout got implemented, and 80% property damage only crashes. From the time the roundabout was open, the injury crashes have dropped to 5%, and the property damage only crashes are 95% of the total. The other thing is it also allows for the traffic to really flow well through the corridor. And just for a little bit of context, this location in Blue Ash is pretty similar from a context standpoint, like the commercial feel of the study area here in Troy. So kind of gives you that confidence that if this is the preferred alternative, like you can expect similar benefits. Next slide.
The next 2 that we'll cover are the intersections in the city of Greene, Ohio. Again, very similar commercial corridor. This one, they had really bad queuing, a lot of accidents as well. These were just opened last year, so we haven't had the data to get the whole study done, but we plan on doing that next year once traffic has gone through. But very similar to this intersection, they had unbalanced traffic flow. You had really bad queuing on the side road legs. The roundabout improvement was able to balance those. Definitely also shorten up those pedestrian crossings. As you can see in the existing condition, they were crossing 5-6 lanes, and in the proposed condition, they only have to cross the 2. And then next slide. Similar again is this is the sister intersection, which is just the one to the south. Just the one to the north. Similar reduced pedestrian crossings. We balanced the traffic flow and provided the access management through there. So just wanted to show you that you guys aren't in an island here. There's definitely intersections similar to yours that have the same challenges that you guys have, and we've have 3 almost identical examples of your intersection of what it was in the existing condition and what it could be in the proposed condition. With that, we'll go to the next slide and take any questions that you may have.
Can you repeat? I think you've already covered it, but in the roundabout southbound lanes, there's only one lane going into the roundabout, and you get a constant right-hand turn lane coming down on that slide,
yes.
Correct? What is the disadvantages to doing that? What does that provide that the other 3 aren't doing?
The lane assignments are from a capacity standpoint.
Yep.
So based on the modeling that we did, we tried to balance to make sure that there wasn't excessive delay on any of the legs.
Any data on those people that would be, in our case, heading west in the roundabout and this constant right-hand turn lane having crashes?
Well, yeah, we're not proposing any bypass lanes, so
No,
all lanes have to yield. As you see on there, there's a yield line that comes through, and as traffic's flowing, if you have a gap between there, then you can enter the roundabout and exit. But you have to enter the roundabout before you can exit it.
I know, but if I'm coming southbound, I'm going to go west, I don't have to go in the roundabout.
But through the alignment you do. You have to come to the yield line and then make the right.
But I could.
Yeah.
But this guy that's busting through could end up being on my tail.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
perceived. It's the perceived gap that you get in there. But
Just a curiosity, what is an unconventional roundabout?
That's a good question, and we've done designs for multiple of them. There's different shapes. So you say a conventional or traditional roundabout is a circle, right?
Yeah.
You have 4 approaches that come in, and they kind of operate as a existing 4-lane intersection. Now you have different shapes and sizes depending on your geometry. Some have skewed intersections that, if they're heavily skewed, you can do more of like an ellipse or an oval, or in some cases you can do a peanut where you kind of pinch in. And we've done all different of those designs.
On the roundabout design, if that option's accepted, is there any of the business driveways that come out now onto Main Street or the side streets that need to be adjusted or closed off, or?
So no, actually, there's a lot of existing right-of-way in there, so we don't have to have any proposed right-of-way, and the driveways are set back far enough that they weren't impacted by the splitter islands that we're putting in there.
But I mean more people, like people trying to come out versus...
Correct. So we're not, there's no changed traffic movements out of the intersections.
Okay.
So now with the signal, we're trying to avoid the left vehicles coming out, and that's where we have the extended splitter islands as far as the access management. But with that, we don't have the queuing back up with the roundabout, so we allow the left outs.
And one last thing.
Are we open to questions?
One more, and we'll go around. And we're not planning on reducing any speed limits anywhere? I mean, other than you have to slow down to get into the roundabout?
None are recommended.
Okay.
Not at this point.
Since Mr. Sievert always goes last, we will start with him.
Thank you. I have a few, basically mainly clarifications for you, or questions, I guess. So here's my, I guess, the initial thought. The study that you provided to us earlier indicated that we could do nothing until 2047, correct?
Is that from the traffic standpoint?
Yes.
Capacity standpoint? I'd have to defer to...
Okay. Well, let's take that assumption as valid, okay? So there is an assumption that we don't have to do anything right now until 2047 based upon an existing study. The question then is, for motivation to being here, you indicated that you were hired by the city, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know if that was at the request of ODOT or at the request of the city?
That was at the request of the city. So since I started here in 2013, we've been looking at this intersection. This intersection's been, there's been retiming. We get complaints routinely. Southbound left turn, not enough time. Westbound left turn, not enough time. I started looking at the accidents. Forget what 3-year period I looked at. There was 90 accidents. The accidents really haven't decreased. So since I've been here, we've been kind of like, what do we do with this intersection? I've contacted traffic engineers. What can we do? And they're like, well, we can retime it. So a couple years ago, we finally got around with ODOT to retime it. ODOT's like, this intersection, like, while it's operating acceptably right now, I don't think 2047, I don't think the recommendation was 2047. I think that was the design year that they analyzed. So they analyzed current conditions, and then they analyzed 20 years into the future. So that's where the 2047 came in, I think. So This intersection is probably one of the busiest intersections that we have. Also, what we serve, what they talk about commercial businesses wise, we serve a lot of commercial businesses, but we also serve industrial. We serve down south, we serve Honda. And if you see a SEVA truck, right, there's a lot of SEVA trucks. And then to the north also, in 2020, Pella opened. We've always had F&P. They're a very strong business. There's a lot of other industrial, smaller, light industrial businesses up there that we serve through this intersection.
What, maybe these are easier for you to answer than this guy, Jill, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, there was lots of indications about pedestrian crossing.
Okay.
I can't imagine that that's a very heavily pedestrian crossing compared to Dorset or any of the other crossings on Main Street.
Well, I think part of it, like, one of the things you need to take into consideration is connectivity. One of the things that Mr. Schilling's been talking about with respect to sidewalks the whole time he's been on council is connectivity, right? So from the south, if you talk about just a couple years ago, we connected sidewalks from the south up to this intersection, right? For the communities, the residential communities that are to the south, right? There wasn't sidewalks. To the west, also, what we did in the recent years is we filled in gaps to get pedestrians and people that want to walk or are trying to get somewhere to be able to walk to here. Also to the west, or to the east of this intersection right now, what's going on is another sidewalk connected over 75, right? There's a lot of people that walk that. I don't think it's odd. I drive out there at least a couple of times a day. Do I see droves of people? No. Do I see a walker every time I'm out there? Yes. I went out there this afternoon just to watch, and I saw 2 or 3 people in my 10, 15 minutes that I was out there walking across. One girl looked like she was going to work. You know, another person, I'm not sure what they were doing, if they were exercising. So I would agree that we're not right adjacent like Dorset is to a whole bunch of residential. This is a commercial area, but to the same extent, I think, you know, one of the things we want to do and one of the things that we hear from council is that we start connecting. We have rec trails, we have multi-use trails. You know, we start allowing people to do this multimodal.
Yeah, you can't ride a bike on the sidewalk. So that's so. Look, that's not the whole. That's not the point of this,
yeah.
Joe. I'm not
yeah.
trying to cross-examine. I just want to ask some questions. So, on Dorset, okay, what is how many accidents occur on Dorset compared to here?
Dorset and
Maine.
I don't know. We're starting to analyze that right now.
Okay.
I wasn't prepared for that question.
Because I think that's relevant. Because I think, as they're indicating, you know, for a person who's looked at car accidents for 37 years, one of the issues that they're saying is that this is going to stop car accidents because you're going to continue or lower the amount of rear-end crashes. There's experts for everybody. I'm certainly not a traffic expert, but there's also going to be a potential issue when you come off of the interstate. If you're heading towards Covington, what is that, west, you're going to immediately hit a light that's pretty close in time, right? I mean, I'm going to date myself, but you basically have Friendly's Corporation, and you're going to hit a light. So you're coming off the interchange. You're going to go a quarter of a mile, an eighth of a mile, and you're going to have another light, right? What's the distance between the light at Lowe's and Friendly's and the interchange? It can't be more than a quarter of a mile.
Lowe's and Friendly's? It's 600 feet, I believe.
600 feet. So,
yeah.
So the premise that, this is going to save so much time, 20 seconds, 40 seconds, whatever it is, really is somewhat mooted because you're going to come off the circle and you're going to have a red light. And
I think that is only actuated if there is a vehicle there. And lots less vehicles are at that intersection than this intersection.
Not on Main Street, there wouldn't be less.
Main Street's going to stay green unless there's a car or vehicle that comes off of, I guess that's...
On all
Lowe's Myers.
On all 3 of those lights, they're in a row? Or is there 2? There's 3, right? 2. There's 3.
There's 2 more between the roundabout.
Marybelle, if you're talking west of this intersection.
West of the intersection, you have 3 lights in a row, right?
Lowe's Meyer, Marybelle, and then a quarter mile down the road or a half mile
At
down the road
Lincoln.
is King's Chapel.
At King's Chapel.
And that's
Okay.
right.
Which would be two.
And those stay green unless they're...
So which ones are staying green, Patrick?
Unless there's vehicles, active vehicles, they're
They
Lowe's,
would have to be triggered.
the Marybelle, which is the furthest west on this.
Turn around and you can see it on the screen.
I see it.
Yeah, he's-
They're going to stay green, or they stay green
They
now?
rest in green.
They are now.
Yeah.
They're going to.
They rest in green now.
Okay.
And Myers Low.
Does all Main Street up until across the interstate stay green? Or is
They
of course
do-
it changes, right?
They all rest in green unless there's a
Activated.
unless they're activated from a side road,
Okay.
side street.
The 4.2 million, what is it, this may be a good question for you. Who's paying that? Is that taxpayers? Is that coming from grant? I know we just got the grant for 700,000 approximately, or whatever it was. What else? That was for the design, right?
Yeah, that was for the design.
So what out of the 4.2, what are we anticipated paying, and what is ODOT contributing?
ODOT's contributing 2.57 million.
And then the remainder would be not out of the general fund. It would be out of the tax increment financing dedicated fund that went into the initial...
The TIF,
the TIF, yeah.
Okay.
So there's no general fund anticipated to be involved in this at all.
I think that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mrs. Snee.
Thank you. Just to follow on that, that funding is the same no matter which option is chosen. Is that correct?
That is our understanding. Yes, that is correct.
All right. And then I noticed when you were talking about looking into the future, when
Yep.
we had the traffic simulations, they were talking about peak traffic coming at 2049, I believe I saw was the year.
Yes.
So you're anticipating improvements now, and then those improvements continue
To be sustained and
until
yes,
we would
yes,
have more traffic in 2049.
yes.
On the comparable intersection in Blue Ash where you had the breakdown of the different types of crashes, do you have any information about the reduction of just overall number of crashes, whether there were injuries or property damage, or no matter what type? Do you have the numbers? I mean, I understand the difference that you're presenting between property damage and injury, but is there a reduction overall, or just a change in type?
Yeah, the angle and left turn crashes, obviously, just with the nature of the roundabout, was significantly reduced.
Okay, so
Yep.
so overall, the number of crashes were reduced.
Exactly.
In
Yep.
the reduced number of crashes,
That is
the
correct.
large majority were property damage versus injury
Yep, that is correct.
crashes. Okay.
Except for the one slide you did show, the crash.
I was asking
did
about the
increase.
specific one in Blue
Yep,
Ash.
yeah.
I wasn't talking about the other side. Is there, I'm just trying to understand, from a traffic engineer point, I can clearly see why you would recommend this. Does ODOT have any guidance as far as what they say about roundabouts versus intersections, where you should use them, number of cars, any kind of guidance at all about that from ODOT?
Yeah, from a safety standpoint, absolutely. You know, as soon as you see a location that has a lot of angle and left turn crashes, and you've absolutely maxed out on what you can do with the signal, like Jill mentioned about signal timing improvements, tried all that, it hasn't worked. So now you kind of have to come up with something that can geometrically force and eliminate those angle and left turn crashes, and that's what the roundabout does. And actually, ODOT did this study not too long time back where they looked at 80 locations where they kind of replaced the signal with the roundabout, and that stat that we shared, what potential reduction of crashes could look like, that was pretty much in line with that. So,
I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Mr. Schilling.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. President. I know when we talk about crashes, and I assume these are crashes where somebody has to be transported to a hospital, the severe, is that the definition of our severe? So we had 5 in 2022, 4 in 2023, and 3 or 4 in 2024. I didn't get to write them all down before the slide was changed, but those are your severe. And you're telling us that roundabouts actually reduce crashes. And a couple of comments on that. I know our roundabout at Dorset and McCaig, actually crashes have increased. We've had more. Again, they've been. And I don't think they've been the severe variety, but I know they've been. As you say, property damage. I know I was in a vehicle crash not too long ago at 25 miles an hour and it totaled my car. So that was heartbreaking, I think. I know a lot of you stated that a lot of the crashes were rear end, and I know, again, from living out in that area, that it is the sun in the morning is blinding. You can't see anything coming into those intersections. And again, so one of my questions is that it's 50 miles an hour from Washington Road until you get into the first traffic light there by Low, or by either and Joe, maybe you can help me with that, but it's either King's Chapel or it's Lowe's. 50 miles an hour, and then it drops to 40 from that point into the intersection that we're talking about. And I would, common sense tells us that the higher speed is creating some of these rear-end crashes that we're seeing now. And I think that while there's been no efforts or no indication that we ought to reduce that, I still think that a lower speed from at least King's Chapel area to this intersection would possibly reduce some of these rear-end collisions, especially in the mornings when you absolutely, and I know a lot of people that might be here that live out there, you can't see. I mean, it's just absolutely the sun, and we can't do anything about the sun. I know that, but so I'm not sure that the roundabout would make a lot of difference in that particular area. That's something to consider. And then then we get into pedestrian crossings, and of course, right now we do have pedestrian crossings with the lights, and I know they have the little buttons to push, which helps. From that standpoint, I know the roundabouts will have no traffic lights at all. And so I know they're supposed to yield to pedestrians going across there when you're coming out of that roundabout at 15 or 20 miles an hour and you're looking, okay, then you have a crosswalk. You slam on your brakes because somebody steps out and then somebody hits you from, so the rear end collisions are still going to be there. I mean, and we have that problem in downtown Troy now. Is we have rear-end collisions because essentially pedestrians step out and nobody's paying attention, and bang bang, you got a rear-end collision. But the roundabout's not going to have any lights at all, and saving the 25 seconds. I was trying to think. I can't remember. Council said no to changes in the roundabout downtown because 24. It saved 20. How many seconds? 4 seconds or
24 seconds.
24 seconds downtown. So. Again, it's, in our lives today, we're in a big hurry to go everywhere, and somehow we don't accomplish anything, but 25 seconds is not a lot. I go down, I travel quite a bit to Augusta, Georgia, population of 400,000 people. We're out on Washington Road quite a bit, which is one of the major streets in leading east-west out of the downtown area of Augusta, Georgia. There's not a roundabout to be seen, and they do have a roundabout on Berkman, which is, if you know anything about Augusta, the Masters Golf Course sits at the corner of Berkman and Washington Road, and you go down Berkman, and there's a single-lane roundabout. They use that to have, when 40,000 people want to leave the tournament at the end of the day, they go through that single-lane roundabout. You know, so I mean, they do serve a purpose, but I'm not, again, it's just, you just wonder why a city the size of Augusta doesn't have more of them, and there aren't any that I'm aware of. So, anyway, back to this. Cost of operation, $10,000 a year for traffic lights, $1,500 a year for roundabouts. Our budget's $48 million, people. It's not, I mean, $7,500 one way or $8,500 one way or another is not going to make or break the city. And then the next question I have is that, and it wasn't really mentioned, but if we decide to do traffic lights, is there a refuge island that's going to be in those available for people trying to cross on the traffic lights, or is that I didn't see that in the plans, and I was probably remiss for not noticing it. But can you tell me if there's going to be a refuge island for people to, cross 2 lanes of traffic and then have that refuge island and then move on to the next 2? But if they, for some reason, if they're a little older, a little slower than 3 or 4 feet a second, they can stay in that refuge island until everything clear, the traffic light changes, they can continue to cross, or is that a possibility, or is that in the plans?
With a standard
I'm sorry, Mr. Attorney, I'm asking him.
I understand that. I'm not answering. I'm just trying to make sure I understood that you're talking about a classic stoplight situation.
In other words, if we have is there a refuge island for the classic traffic light? I know there's one for the roundabouts.
There's no refuge island for the signal option.
Can we build one in there? Would that be of any advantage?
It would just be a 2-step crossing. So essentially, you would, a pedestrian that cannot make it through the pedestrian signal time, and if they are stuck and the opposing traffic is already on the way, you need to stop at the refuge island. So
Wouldn't it just be safer to time the crossing longer?
Yep, exactly at that point.
Okay. And then I assume the lights that we will be on, if we decide to do traffic lights, there's some sort of an artificial intelligence that can help with the backups. In other words, some of the lights will stay on. You talked about there's not enough time to get through a left-hand lane turn from South Stanfield on to West Main Street. And the same thing, everybody complains about the left-hand turn from Experiment Farm heading east on West Main Street. So there's traffic lights now that sort of read that and stay on a little bit longer to help get that traffic through, or that's a possibility, right?
So it'll be a complete signal replacement. So you'll have different signal head arrangement, especially for those right turners, the westbound right turn movement with the signal option. So essentially what's going to happen is when your southbound left is making that movement, now that you have a westbound right, those can happen at the same time. So it kind of provides additional time for that.
Right. But the traffic lights can actually figure out how many cars are backed up or vehicles are backed up and stay on a little bit longer to clear that out, or?
Yeah, there's options that you can explore with that. So
that'd be sort of like an artificial intelligence deal, or?
They
can read that type of stuff?
Yeah, it's not with the artificial intelligence stuff, but you can do that with the conventional signal controller as well.
Okay. And again, I see, in my own experience out there, like I say, there's not a lot of people crossing that intersection. I think we get a lot of walkers from the hotels, and they'll cross down there by front of Walmart, and they'll cross there and go into the Walmart parking area, and there's fast food restaurants there, and of course Walmart and everything else. So, but I don't see a lot of. I've lived out here 20 years, and I don't see a lot of people trying to actually cross that intersection. It just I think it's a lot of things going on in that intersection. I'm not sure that I'd ever want to try to do that myself. Okay, that's basically my question. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know you had a few questions, so I think I took notes, so I have some responses to a few of them. So one being with what you mentioned about the signal, providing that option with the PED signal being there, and then, pedestrians having more of a safer crossing. What you can do with the roundabout is you can have those rectangular rapid flashing beacons.
We don't use those here in Troy.
Let him answer his questions. We don't need to start that.
Well, you can have that as an option where, it kind of flashes and allows for pedestrians to cross. The other thing with that is like with the roundabout, you're looking at, as the pedestrians are crossing, one direction of traffic versus both directions, which comes with the signal. So that is another thing. The other aspect that you talked about with the speed limit, I think with the signal, that's an issue because when you kind of start talking about like actuated operation that Jill talked about, I think what you get is if you have like a constant green, mobility, as traffic is flowing and safety kind of get into conflict with one another in these situations because now you have traffic that is cruising through the entire corridor, whereas with the roundabout, you're going to add that slowing effect with the geometry and stuff. So that is, another element of the roundabout that would help with the speeding issue. With the speed limit thing that you mentioned, I think there's a speed limit study that ODOT requires for city to be able to change the speed limit, so which is like a completely different exercise, where you're looking at access through the corridors. You're kind of having to collect speed data to see actually what is your 85th percentile speed through that and how many people are going over the speed limit. So. And then I think the last thing that you talked about was about property damage only crashes at one of the comparable locations which have increased. Just out of curiosity, when was that roundabout implemented? Or
the roundabout on Dorset has been around 3 years or 4 years.
It's relatively small, so that's...
Yeah, it's actually not too far away from where you guys are looking at, but it's been, we've had it about, 4 years, Jill, is that? 2018, time flies. Yeah, so but again, we found that accidents have actually increased in it because we built that roundabout versus a four-way stop sign.
And research kind of tells the same thing with, as drivers kind of get used with the roundabout on how it functions, because you don't see roundabouts everywhere. It kind of takes that time for people to get used to the driving condition of the roundabout. So typically they would recommend like after 5 years, once the roundabout has been constructed, when you look at data then, it is a better reflection, then you have more of an apples to apples comparison. So that's what I would say.
Mr. Whidden.
First off, thank you for all the public coming out. I look forward to your input tonight. It's in my packet, it's slide 11, it's the proposed capacity improvement screen. Talking about the roundabout, it looked like the timing to go through the roundabout on the eastbound and westbound flow would actually increase, while the southbound and northbound would be the ones that would decrease or see the most benefit. Is that correct? Yep,
that is absolutely correct. So with the roundabout, what you're doing is you're essentially balancing the delays out, which, with the signal, you're primarily, prioritizing your West Main Street. So that's why you see essentially with that, like you have a lot less delays on the eastbound and westbound approaches with the signal option, whereas with the roundabout, you're balancing so that Experiment Farm and Stanfield don't get neglected. So.
Okay. One of the questions I hear a lot about roundabouts is concerns with commercial traffic, semi-truck traffic. Can you just talk about what impacts that would have, considering that is probably that side of town will probably see the most industrial growth over the next coming decades, and how that might affect what they're trying to do out there?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Yeah, so as you can see from the proposed layout, what we have in the orange shape is the splitter islands or truck aprons. And what roundabouts are designed for is that interior truck apron is meant for the truck traffic, or the cab stays in the lane itself, and the orange concrete area is actually intended for the trailer to track over. And then a lot of times what you do is you have a wider outside lane than an inside lane because you don't have that truck apron to track over to allow for that movement. But we go through, there's a auto turn analysis that you do for different types of truck and their movement through the intersection that we run to make sure that trucks can fit through the intersection without having to jump over a lane or cross over an unattended island.
I believe the rest of my fellow council members have hit on most of the other topics I was going to discuss, so I'll stand there and move on.
Mrs. Marshall.
I apologize because I'm sure I'm going to ask questions that were already answered, but I don't know if I heard those answers clearly.
Grab your mic, Christie.
Oh, sorry. So I know that you talked about the max time for the lights. I didn't hear what you said, or I don't remember what you said about they are timed out. There is no more adjusting that.
When we're talking to ODOT with their consultant to look at the retiming of the signal, that's what you're asking about, right? That
Correct.
we just recently did, or we've done a couple years back. I think we were talking about at peak hour, we were talking about 120-second signal timing. And so I said, well, let's make it longer to allow, vehicles to completely flush out during a green. And so that's over 2 minutes. And every consultant and everybody said, you don't want that. Like 2 minutes is about your max that you want to stop. And, and so it was kind of at that point, I kind of felt like what they were saying was you're at kind of capacity. We haven't hit like when Mr. Sievert talked about, 2047, it says we don't have to do anything until 2047, right? We have to do something before then, but we're not like completely crazy backed up now. We're just saying, hey, it's going to take a couple of years to do an improvement, and let's get it before, let's encourage development and everything else, whatever this improvement is, let's continue to encourage it instead of people sitting out there waiting, things like that. So we're at 120-second peak cycle time. That's like a green light. You sit there and it goes back to that green light. That's the whole cycle. And so that's where I said we were pretty much maxed out.
Okay, and then you talked about the ones that are down in front of like Chipotle, and that you said that those are always set to.
Well, they rest in green, like every signal along Main Street.
That when I'm out there.
You don't? You see it in red?
I always get stopped.
Okay.
I always seem to get stopped. But that's just me.
And it actually runs on that same cycle length. So why does that matter? Where vehicles are traveling through South Stanfield and through the intersection or Experiment Farm the whole time that there is a green on Experiment Farm or Stingenfield, the other intersections, they have a shorter green time on side streets. They do just because of the lack of traffic. So it rests in green much longer along Main Street at those intersections than it does on Experiment Farm and South Stanfield.
So explain to me then how that's going to be, because there are times when I go around the circle downtown, where the lights that are further out, you do get stuck, and you get stuck quite a bit. I don't see how that's going to be any different.
Your Water Street and your Franklin, like if you're talking about downtown, those intersections are much closer. There's one lane going to them, so the stacking of the vehicles is much smaller. Also, the green time on Water or on Franklin, I'm getting really technical here, but that cycle length is like 85 seconds. And so, meaning that like from green light all the way through to green light, it's 85 seconds. But my whole point is that Water and Franklin are, in my professional opinion, they're triggered way more than Maryville, Lowe's, those intersections are. So when you say you feel like you hit a red light, like if I'm coming out of Lowe's or Maryville, or getting gas or anything like that, I feel like I have to sit at that red light, not on Main. I'm sitting at that red light on that side street much longer than I would at Water, at Franklin, any of those. So that means that the Main Street has green light much longer than the side streets do.
Okay. And then I think Mr. Schilling said something about, I didn't hear the answer to this. There is no way, not an option to reduce speed. I know that he mentioned something about we would have to do traffic studies, so we could reduce the speed.
We can look at it. But what it's mostly based off of, there's a lot of numbers, a lot of input that's put into that. But what it is mostly based off of is 85th percentile of speed, of the existing speed that's out there. So what does that mean? That means if you look at the vehicles traveling, and say one of them's traveling 5 miles an hour, and you're looking at 85% of them. What's the speed that 85% of those vehicles are traveling? And so when you talk about that,
Well, they're speeding, I'm sure.
well, okay, so that's your answer. So when you say that the biggest factor that's going to weigh in on adjusting speed, and you want to adjust it down, the biggest factor that's going to weigh in on it is your 85th percentile, and you just said they're speeding.
Right, I guess, but I'm thinking like if it's, say it's 40 miles an hour and people are going 50 miles an hour, reduce it to 30 miles an hour, and then they're going to go maybe 40 like they should have been.
People will, per a traffic engineer, I've asked this many a time, people will travel what they feel safe on. You can put, from an old Richard Oakes who's passed, but he's an old traffic engineer, he used to say, you can make it 35 everywhere and make everybody that is not obeying the law, that is breaking the law, and that's what you'll do. So therefore, that's why when you look at this, we could set it per the ORC, which I'm not sure if I don't think that this corridor is set per the ORC right now. I think there already was a speed study done, but it's going to be based off that 85th percentile.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, Christie, just so everybody is clear, that's not a measurement and a standard and decision we make here locally.
Right, I know.
We have to
Like
follow, that's a statewide
just
standard and
or whatever.
calculation that's used. So, we don't make up the speed limits. We have to follow the same ORC as everybody else.
Yeah. All right, and then the other question I had, so I know that when they changed to the roundabout at Dorset, and accidents have clearly gone up. What do you think is going to be the major change? I know it's a different intersection, but what is going to be the major difference between the increase that they had and what makes you think that we're not going to have an increase here? It's the same people driving.
It is the same people driving. I do agree with that. There's much less conflict points with a roundabout, right? The intersection at McKagan-Dorset, one of the reasons that the accidents probably occur now, and they didn't before, was because it was a four-way stop. Before the intersection was changed from a four-way stop, it was getting to the point that there was 8,000 to 9,000 vehicles coming through that intersection on each leg. It was getting to the point there was 8 or 9 different vehicles that were stopped at that intersection because we were just trying to get more traffic through the intersection. So we had enough width at that street that it was like, let's add another lane. Maybe that'll help people get through the intersection, right? It was a four-way stop. There were close calls. People didn't know who was right to go and who was not right to go, right? I had a guy one time tell me, he goes, I just go, I stop, I count to 2, and I keep on going. And I was like, that's probably pretty accurate, right? I mean, that doesn't make it right. So one of the reasons I think the accidents have increased is because you stopped it from a four-way stop. But when we talk about this intersection, I don't know that I have a good feel. Like what they had talked about, what Gaurav had just talked about was that the rear ends, right? You don't have the conflict points. You don't have the left turners. You don't have the people that are going through the intersection on the red light and somebody's running the green light, and so you don't have that conflict point. If you look at a traditional roundabout and the number of conflict points, I think it's 32 to 8. 32 to 8. So at a normal intersection, when you have people turning left, they're going straight, they're going right, there's 32 conflict points with people that are not going in the same direction can hit each other, right? When you look at an intersection, a roundabout, there's 8. Now, I would say with the 2x2, that number increases, but with more lanes, through lanes, there's more conflict points as well. So that's where it's proven. They've done studies. That's what they were saying about the accidents are going to decrease from rear ends, right? Because people aren't coming and slamming on brakes to stop at the green light, as well as side swipes. Is that the other one? Okay, side swipes, angles.
But wouldn't that have study said the same thing at Dorset? That the accidents should decrease?
When going from a four-way stop?
Well,
No.
Yeah.
Those conflict points don't exist at a four-way stop because theoretically
Well,
you're
right,
the only
but I'm
one
just
moving
saying,
through the
I mean,
intersection at that time.
We would have hoped that the accidents regardless of what the contact points or whatever would have not increased.
I would agree.
Okay, so then my last question is, he mentioned something about the apron for the semis. About how long does that last? Like
The apron,
Well, like where the
Concrete.
trucks would go over
The ramp.
the ramp, I guess. Isn't that what you call it? That's what you said, right?
well, you mean how long? Like how wide is it, or
will
how
it last?
long?
Like what's like
Lifespan.
yeah.
Okay, so from a
It's gonna
concrete
crumble.
standpoint, I mean, if you
Yeah.
think about concrete, 20, 30 years would be the expectancy. I don't know if it changes a little bit. We don't really have a lot of concrete streets, but I mean, we would be designing it and assuming it's going to last 30 years. But again, the reason I say we don't have a lot of concrete streets is because of salt, right? Like how much salt are we putting on there? How much is that deteriorating it? How does that affect the life of it?
Okay. How do the plow drivers feel about that?
Plow drivers hate change. So they don't like more lanes. They
I
don't
didn't know
like
if it was easier for
islands. They don't like.
them
They hate change.
to navigate with that being lower instead of having like.
It's still going to be an extra pass, right? That mountable curb's going to be an extra pass. Or at McKagan Dorset, they don't plow it. They salt.
Do they fit?
Yeah.
They fit.
I mean, I don't know that they would just be able to drive around it and not maneuver back and forth. But
Actually, there's less pavement on the roundabout option. If you look at the two different signals, there's 4 lanes, so you have actually more pavement that you have to clear in a maintenance event like that, where you only have the 2 lanes approaching on there. And then traditionally, you don't clear off the truck aprons. It's just travel way. So then the truck will track over the snow cover.
Right. I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
think they did, but I didn't know like if they would have to like navigate differently because it's like a curve
No.
normally. Okay, I'm done.
Ms. Hickman.
Thank you, Mr. President. So on slide 13 in the simulation, it looks like there is from Stanfield turning right onto 41. It looks like there's like an extra turn lane. And then in the proposed pictures, there is not an extra turn lane.
Turning right or left?
Turning right onto 41 from Stanfield.
There's a
and-
there's a constant turn lane to the right.
But in the simulation, it looks like it's carved out separately, so people could just naturally turn right a lot easier, visually anyways. No, I think
Yeah, that's
that one right there. Nope. That one right there. So you can see
Can you point out which is the which? Because I think there's a little bit of.
what are you talking about?
right, kind of where you were pointing, how that separates. Yes. How that separates there in the simulation is not in pictures. So just if there could be some clarification on that.
There's a limitation to what you can show graphically, but
Sure.
the way the traffic is programmed in the simulation, it's yielding at the roundabout.
Okay.
So it's not shown exactly as it is in the image.
Okay.
The modeling is set up to drive like it would be in there.
Okay. I just know somebody had requested actually more like that, to where you could easily just feel that separation and turn versus everybody feeling kind of compacted in that way. So I didn't know if that was a kind of a option that was looked at or not. And then I know the rapid flashing lights have been a hot topic with things downtown, but as everyone has stated, they don't see pedestrians very often in this area. I am with Jill. Every time I'm on that side of town, I do see somebody crossing either, most of the time it is over Stanfield, like so going from like Subway to Chick-fil-A or vice versa. That's the most that I see people crossing. So I do feel like the rapid flashing lights may work better in this area because it is less pedestrians, whereas downtown there's constant pedestrians, so it would constantly be going off, which is what the previous traffic engineers for downtown were trying to say. So I do feel like that could be a very good thing to add into this.
Yeah, and with ProEg says with multi-lane roundabouts, you have to have a proactive pedestrian enhancement there to help identify that there's where that can be a signal, like a rapid flashing beacon. It could be a raised crosswalk through the area, but some sort of proactive measure that helps traffic indicate that people are crossing here.
Absolutely. I think that is kind of all I have. I feel like most of my fellow council members have asked the rest of the questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience. Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, sir. I don't know whether Jill or Tony needs to answer this, but what is the grade of the intersection at this point as to traffic flow? What are we, a D, a B, a C?
Existing intersection is a D.
It is a D at this
It is
point?
a D,
Okay.
yes. And that there's levels from A to F. I thought it was
Correct.
F.
Gotcha. And with the numbers that you're working with the signalized or roundabout, what is the potential grade off of the numbers you're working on at this point? What does that grade go to?
So with the improved signal, it will go to a level of service C. And with the roundabout, again, I'll explain this in a little bit. It goes to a D, which is existing. But roundabout and signals are kind of treated differently when it comes to level of service. So with the signal, you can have more delays, and you still get a better letter grade just with the nature of how the signal is. Like, that's just how researchers kind of came up with that. And for the roundabout, even if you have lesser delays, you'll still get a letter grade of D. But when you compare, like, numbers-wise, like, you're still looking at a reduction compared to the existing.
So that is numbers based on
Yep.
vehicles through the intersection?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
got
Yep.
it. And eventually, will ODOT weigh in on their recommendation off of Structure Point, or will they,
Have they?
what will ODOT come up with? Any recommendation, or will they leave that up to us?
They will leave that up to the study, which is involving this input as well. They are reviewing the study, the feasibility study, for a technical standpoint to make sure that we're meeting all of the federal requirements, because this does have federal funding. And I know that we're getting to the end of you, but I don't want to forget to say this. Right now, this is supposed to go to construction in state fiscal year 2029, which is anywhere from July of 28 to whatever the improvement is. From July of 28 to June of 29, it needs to go out to bid. That is to obtain the $2.57 million. If we say we don't want to do the project, if council decides they don't want to do the project, we forego the $2.57 million, but also what we do is we lose points on our next application, which typically those points, scoring is always very close, right? And so those points could mean that we don't get the next funding. And the funding, we applied for this in October of 2023. We were awarded in mid-2024, and then it's to be built in state fiscal year 2029. So if we delay, we say we don't want to do anything, we lose points on the next round that we apply for, whether it's this year, next year, in 3 years, or 5 years, right? Whether it's this signal in 5 years or whatever. And then also just keep in mind that it's a 5-year time frame, that it's a 5 or 6 year time frame from application to when it actually goes to construction.
So, but that, the money, what we're talking about funding is either option?
Either option.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. President, sorry.
I got one question first. For those that don't know the letters, can we have a real quick course on the letter grades that Mr. Phillips asked about?
Well, here. We talk about, the letters we talk about it's called level of service. And so level of service equates to amount of delay. And so what Gaurav was talking about a little bit was that signals can have a longer delay, but they still have a better letter grade, if you want to say, for whatever reason. And so when he said, well, D is what the roundabout is, well, that could be a delay of 30 seconds. I think it is around a delay of 30 seconds. And there will be times at the signal that you'll sit there for 70 80 seconds, depending on at what point you get up to that signal and at what leg you're coming in from. And so, and D would also be that 70, 80 seconds for a signal. So you can see the 30 seconds is a D for a roundabout, and the 70, 80 seconds is a D for the signal. And so that's kind of...
I guess my question is
Yep.
D better than A better than D?
Sorry, A is best,
Okay.
F is bad.
It's like open freeway at night.
Okay.
No delay.
Traffic and no one there.
Or Jill's green lights on Main Street out of the way all the time, right?
I do have a button. No.
Jill, stay up there. Jill, Jill, I have a question.
Mr. Sievert had a question he forgot about.
Well, that was McCaig Dorset, which I'm glad to hear Ms. Marshall ask about. But I found that, so I'm going through this because, I don't know, it all kind of meshes together. But I found the 2023 study.
Okay.
It's on the website if anybody wants to get it. So I guess it says, and that's where the 2020 or 2047 came from. It says
Okay.
existing year 2023 and a design year of 2047 traffic volumes with the proposed traffic signal improvements, roundabout, blah, 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 works exhausted. So can you tell me what that means in layman terms?
Yeah, so because you don't design your signal for today or your intersection, signal, roundabout, whatever, you don't design your improvement for today. You're designing it for 20. And this instance, when we were doing that analysis, it was from 2023 to 2047, which is 25 years. So that's what it's saying. It's saying in 2025, or in 25 years, that's the recommendation. But because you can't, you're not modeling 2023, 2024, 2025. You're modeling just your base point, which is existing, and you're modeling in future.
So are we going to get a similar study from these individuals comparable to the one that we got in 2023?
Yes.
So why did we do it twice?
Because we didn't follow all of ODOT's. When we did the original study, ODOT didn't have what they call the OATS manual. It's OATS. They didn't have this OATS manual. Okay. And then when we did it in 23, I didn't realize there was an OATS manual because we hadn't done it with ODOT. And honestly, we submitted the application for funding, and we got it. And I thought, okay, we're good to go. Well, then ODOT came to me in May of 24 and said, well, you have to do this feasibility study with the OATS manual or you won't get the funding. Okay. I went back and forth with them for several months trying to fight the bigger dad, and we're doing the OATS manual study.
So I was just trying to, so is it comparable? I mean, 2023 to 2026 should be fairly comparable in the results.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I guess why that is somewhat important is because in 2023, the lane change or the proposed signal change was 3.4 million, and the roundabout was 4.2. The lane change now is 4.2 million, but the roundabout has stayed at 4.2. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to figure out why inflation would not have impacted the roundabout comparably to the lane change, or the signal change, I'm sorry.
So what we did in between 23 and now, South Stanfield. So we stopped our South Stanfield reconstruction widening right north of Meyer. And we were assuming that was going to go further north. But because of construction costs and limitations, we stopped that on the south. So when they add in, so for the roundabout, they had to go down that far anyways. For the signal, they didn't have to go down that far. So we are adding intersection maintenance, repair, improvements that we need to get to, as well as, I'm not sure, I think that's it.
So just to clarify this so I can finally put this to bed from an economic perspective, so we're approximately 2.7 from the state, a $4.2 million project.
Yep.
2.7 from the state, 700,000 we've already got from a grant, and we make up the difference.
Yep.
So I'm trying to do that in my head, about 1.3 million, I guess, give or take. Is that right? give or take. I think, I'm trying to do it on my head, but I think that's about right. 1.2, 1.3 million.
Okay.
But if council, and that's for either project, whether we do the roundabout or the signal, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If council says, hey, you know what, we're not going to do anything, we don't want to do anything right now, we would lose, well, the 700,000, I assume, just goes away because we won't have this study done.
Right.
And we lose the 2.5, and we kind of get a little check mark that says, from ODOT, that says, hey, these people didn't do something that we think they should have done.
Yeah.
Okay. And if we go forward, then the majority of that will be paid by the state. But I think what's important that you said at the end that people need to understand, because I think everybody has construction fatigue. And the project, if we go forward to fund this, is not going to, it's going to be on the 29 schedule.
Calendar year.
So I know we're halfway through 26 and years do fly. I'm sure everybody in here recognizes that, but we're at least 3 years out approximately before we would even have this, before it would have any impact on anybody in this room.
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Sickman.
So obviously Troy's growing, especially on this end of town. Has anyone looked into if there will be lane increases from any of the directions?
From any of it?
If we keep building down Experiment Farm, will we need another lane added in?
We have. We've done traffic counts kind of out there, and generally speaking, 15,000 vehicles or less, one lane in each direction, maybe a left turn lane, it can handle it. Pending that there's no heavy right turn somewhere, maybe you would need to, add a right drop lane kind of thing like that. But we are generally watching traffic in all directions. Yes, and kind of counting it and saying it looks, decent. They also did updated counts as a part of this, as a requirement from ODOT, updated counts to say, so they know what's coming in each leg as well.
So is there any chance that ODOT will come in and say that 41 needs another lane increase?
No. ODOT wouldn't come in and say that. It would be us looking at the count saying, hey, when we look at, I'm not sure where you're going, and if you have when we look at the intersection.
I mentioned it a while back to Mr. Titterington, so that way maybe you guys could be prepared for it, because it is on, I don't know if it's the Planning Commission packet of the state or whatever that document is called, but it is written in that document that they are wanting to add a lane from the highway to Experiment Farm.
There's a it's written in the long-range transportation plan. Yes. Okay, that is approved through MVRPC, but it is a city project. That is on our long-range transportation plan, that, hey, when traffic can't be maintained from Troytown to Experiment Farm, we need to look at expanding from 5 to 7 lanes.
So then how would that potentially affect the roundabout?
What we've looked at right now with this intersection and the number of vehicles going through it, the traffic engineer is saying 2 lanes is good for the next 20 years.
Okay.
2 through lanes.
And so what happens at MVRPC, we talk about the TIP, which is that long-range plan, and frequently there are adjustments made to the various timing of projects, so they move typically farther away.
Okay.
So as we get more detailed design on projects like this, that impacts that timing of that long-range plan. That's not an absolute, you must do the project this year because it's on that plan. It does move.
What that long-range plan also does is when you're adding capacity to a road, MVRPC makes sure that it's on your long-range transportation plan. They don't allow you to apply for funding and go into a TIP until it is on that long-range plan. The long-range plan is updated, I feel like it's updated every 10 years. And so, every 10 years, we're kind of hey, what was on that old plan? Do we still feel like these are logical and potentially warranted to proceed forward? And then you show it in a 5, a 10, a 15, a 20-year time frame, right? But typically, as Patrick said, if they're not needed, they just keep getting pushed back and they stay on that long-range plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Yep.
I just have a general question to the consultants. from your other cities and everything, is there anything you can help us to explain and encourage people to not be anti-roundabout with the ones we have and to get used to them?
Education.
I can say from all the public meetings that I've been to that this isn't unique. Most people are objective to them when they first come. You know, it's new, it's scary, it's not what you're used to, but there's science behind why they're recommended. They slow traffic down. They reduce the angle in rear end crashes. They reduce the locations where you can have these crashes at. You know, you're only coming from one direction circulating. So most communities that we go to are apprehensive to them at first. And once they have them, they're like, wow, we understand it. We get used to this. And then you start seeing 2, 3, 4. And then when you have 2, 3, 4, people are more comfortable with them. And then it's not as big of a obstacle moving forward from there.
And I'll say that, you know, with the roundabouts, we talked about speed, and at the end of the day, speed is what that, you know, causes fatalities, right? So, you know, that's the biggest benefit is the severity of the crash. That's going to get reduced significantly with the roundabout.
Thank you. With that, we will go to the public, and Sue, do you need to name a number like normal, or? That's come on down. We will give you 5 minutes. The only thing, once again, if you got 5 and you keep repeating or dwell on one, we will squeeze that 5 so we can hear to everybody.
Hi, Dave Bosey, 550 Chartwell Court in Troy. I was hoping that the experience in McKeag and Dorset would be a positive result. And I guess what I'm learning is we sort of sacrifice safety for capacity because four-way stop to roundabout hurts safety but helps capacity. So it's very hard to use that now as in my mind, a reason to do this. But I do have a question for the engineers. Have we taken into account in the simulation the amount of truck traffic that we have on West Main? Especially, I believe, a lot of three-leg movement coming from the highway around to Honda. And I'm no traffic engineer, but I would think a long truck making a three-leg movement significantly impacts the traffic on a roundabout. And oh, by the way, we have a third expansion of Honda coming. So I'd just like to understand, have we taken into account all that truck traffic?
Yes, we have. Actually, in the simulation, it's interesting. If you see
Thank you.
We did take into account, with the existing count, we got the truck data as well, so that was put into the model. And if you can see it over there to the east, there you have a couple of those extended vehicles. Those are the trucks right there. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Can I put this
Sure
down?
can.
I'm Joyce Kopic. I live in Troy on the other side at Rosewood, on Rosewood. I work on Experimental Farm Road at Precision Aero. So I go on this intersection. I've been on it for 11 years and more. And I will tell you right now, the trucks are a really big deal of all of our businesses through there because that's what we depend on getting our parts out and our parts in. And I'm really concerned about it. Is it 2 lanes all the way through around the circle?
2 lanes in 3 directions and 1 from the south to north.
Okay. Nobody can even get the 1 lane on Dorset and McKeag. I'm really, really afraid on 2 lanes, and I'm wondering how much space this circle is taking and how much room these roads are going to have that are the 2 lanes, because there's not that much space through there anyway. How close are they going to be to the gas stations and to Fazoli's and to Chick-fil-A? Because there could be accidents that go right into those. That is something I'm really concerned about too. Like I said, I travel that direction every day. On Stanfield too, we have our fire department. So I'm also concerned too of them getting through okay to like some of the factories and stuff like F&P, a lot of times fires are a big concern. I'm just really, really worried about this whole thing. And if we do have this, how are you going to reroute all the traffic that need to get through to the businesses over there? Because I don't know how I'm going to get to work, to be honest.
You mean during construction?
Yes. I mean, am I going to have to go behind Walmart in that one little road that they have that hooks to the hotels and the steakhouse?
Where are you living at?
I live right across town near the root beer stand, that area.
Southview, okay.
So, I mean, I'm already having construction problems right now anyways. But I'm getting to work. And I'm going behind, that's why I've been going on McKeag and Dorset, which I'll tell you what, I hold my breath every time I go through that circle. And I've been going behind Honda and going that direction because I want to avoid all the traffic and all the construction. Even my road right now has a bridge being worked on it, so everything's closed, and that worried me for a while that I wouldn't be able to get in and out. This is a whole new ball game, and I'm really worried about the 2 lanes. And I'm really worried for the truckers too, because everyone that I had on Facebook, even when I posted on Facebook, said they don't want to see a roundabout there. The truckers do not want to see a roundabout there. Thanks.
Ma'am, I have a question for you.
Okay.
And just to follow up, do you have concerns that you just need answers to, or you say you do not want a roundabout, period, or you would want the other option?
Okay, I'll be honest with you. I don't care for some of these roundabouts, but I'm okay. I've always been okay with a square because to me that's part of Troy. And I love the fountain, and I don't want to ever see that go away. And I will say, too, crazy thing, I got delayed coming here because I stopped at 3 stoplights. And I do know for a fact, too, going to Myers and stuff, that direction, when those factories let out, and they let out around, we get out at 4. There's some that get out at 3. But when they get out, like Honda gets out and stuff, too, it is packed with traffic coming from Stanfield and Experimental Farm, not necessarily on the main street. So that needs to be in consideration too, because it's not.
Okay, but I think in roundabouts in general, because the one out here, I will almost guarantee you when it gets done, there'll be somebody complains and said it did not handle the backup for school in the morning and at night. It's not supposed to handle the backup. You're going to get backed up. I mean, if you got 3,000 cars or whatever it is, or 200 cars, you can put a stoplight, in my opinion, stoplight, stop sign, or have a cop out there directing traffic. It's going to back up.
I don't have a problem with the one on Adams Street, to be honest.
Well, I'm anywhere, whether it's
but the one on McKeag is a disaster.
No.
And this one with 2 lanes scares the hell out of me, to be honest with you.
But that's exactly the pattern we used to have downtown.
I know, but it's better now the way you guys do have it fixed. But it does not have near as much traffic as this does. I honestly think that the signal thing is a better idea than this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Bradley Barron. I reside at 105 Crestwood Drive, and I am one that drives that intersection quite frequently. And while I don't have a problem with the roundabouts that are in place or going in place, I have a problem with this one. There is too much traffic out there. It's accidents waiting to happen. There's still going to be accidents. I'm sorry, you can't say it's not going to do away with accidents. There are going to be accidents there. I don't know if any of you have ever had the chance to drive in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, but I'm going to throw something out which may be another viable solution to look at. Lawrenceburg, Indiana had a bottleneck for years on US 50 on the west side of town between Lawrenceburg and Aurora, Indiana. It was bad traffic. Now, how did they solve that? They took an elevated US 50. It's called the Thomas G. Denning and Larry Fogel Memorial Bridges. The elevated US 50 did away with all the traffic lights at the intersections, and you have to physically exit US 50 to get to the surface streets. My question is, why don't we do that here? Why has that never been discussed? We can take 41, continue the elevated roadway from the highway bridge, put in exit ramps on and off ramps to the surface streets to get to the businesses, and that will solve a lot of your problems at that intersection because it will separate that intersection. Your Experiment Farm and Stanton Field traffic would go underneath. They would have on-ramps to get up to 41 and continue on. It's another way of looking at it that I think we need to take a look at because I just don't think a roundabout's going to work at this intersection. And I think the signalized intersection may lead to more crashes and injuries. But that's just my opinion. Take it for what it is. So that's something for you to think about. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Alan Clark. I live on Westlake Drive in Troy, and I've lived here for 45 years. And I appreciate all of council asking pertinent questions, and I'm going to keep this brief, I promise. Regarding the speed lowering, if that can be done, that would be pertinent. And if I recall right, the state, our speed limits are set by the state. They can be lower than the state limit. They can't be higher than the state limit. So therefore, that would be a positive thing. Also, I mean, as far as if anybody's done any analysis on the severe accidents out there, how many of those were drug-related, alcohol-related, the ones that, were the bad crashes? And what time of the day or night were they? Every few years we seem to go around and readjust the public square. Just when people are getting used to that, we're readjusting it again. And I think, once they get used to something, and as long as it stays that way, that ought to be good, but you just got to leave it that way. But, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Bob Ike. I'm Delphinium Court in Troy, and I use that intersection about 6 or 7 times a week, and the one at Dorset and McKeag 2 or 3 times a day, probably. And the one thing that I wanted to ask, first of all, is clarify about the accidents. I think we said, and I was in the back so I couldn't see, that the injury accidents are actually reduced, but I believe what you said is that the actual fender benders increase with the traffic circle, or they go up from light. Is that right?
Yep.
Very good. Okay, so and that's what we saw at McKeag. All right. So we'll have the fender bender, and we might have an accident, that's at 20 miles an hour that totals the car, doesn't send anybody to the hospital. That's the way things go now. So from an accident standpoint, I don't think the traffic circle, and I don't have anything against traffic circles. Troy has, their downtown is a traffic circle. But the injury accidents are the ones that are reduced. So, and that's a good thing. So that's maybe a reason to do it. Then the next thing is the truck traffic, because like Honda is expanding right now, and the trucks that go through there, again, like the lady that comes from the other side of town, I can't imagine, navigating, beside a truck in that circle and looking at, when I'm in my little car and making sure that that's all right. So from that kind of accident, and that kind of traffic is going to way increase. Basically, I think, with the fact that it is going to be increased accidents, I think that, and I'm glad that you did two different studies, but my vote would be for the improved traffic intersection, and based on those facts. Not I don't hate traffic circles or anything like that, but based on those facts. And that's it.
Mr. President, if I may ask just a clarification. So when we were talking about the accidents, correct me if I'm wrong, I was understanding it that if we had 100% of the accidents that were happening in either what we currently have or a roundabout, the percentage is what changes. So we go from more collisions and more injury-related accidents to then we just have more fender benders versus it's not that we receive more fender benders, it's just that percentage is what changes. I think that's what the public is maybe getting confused on, is how the percentage shifts from one to the other. So I don't know if you could maybe explain that a little bit better.
Yeah, that is correct, and I apologize if I misled you there, but it's the percentage of crashes kind of shifts from heavy injuries to more property damage only. It's not the number that's going to increase. So.
But I agree that that's what you guys said, but then I thought in response to Ms. Marshall's conversation that there was an increase in property damages accidents on McCaig Dorset. Isn't that what you said?
There was.
Okay. So
Went from a four-way stop.
Yeah. No, I understand, but I just want to make sure that this gentleman knows that what he heard was correct, that there was an increase in property damage accidents. We have an existing roundabout that's been, I'm sure you've been to Troy a bunch, we have an existing roundabout at the square. We put in a new one in McCaig Dorset. There's another one coming on in Adams Street. When McCaig Dorset, and there could be lots of reasons, including the fact that I think a lot of people would agree that it may be significantly smaller and not as designed as appropriately as some of these, but there was an increase, and maybe you were not aware of that, but I do believe that there was an increase in fender bender accidents when we put in that roundabout as opposed to having a four-way stop there. And so I just wanted to clarify that so that gentleman didn't think he had misheard that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mike Pascal. I live at 2846 Parkwood Drive, so I am west of this intersection. And I had a question. It wasn't not clear from the pictures, and I kind of heard something that made me question how this was set up. So if I'm coming west on this intersection and going straight towards 75, are there going to be two lanes going straight, or is it just one lane going straight?
If you're on Main Street.
I'm on Main Street coming into this intersection, coming from the top. Will it be two lanes or one lane?
Main Street and continuing on Main Street, there's two lanes.
There'll be two lanes. Okay.
Main Street is the lower left.
Yeah.
Lower
Coming
left.
from the top corner down to the bottom
corner,
corner.
experiment.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Both can
At an angle, but you get the point. So if I'm going straight, there'll be two lanes? Okay.
and both can go straight.
And you would just maintain the lane that you're in.
Correct.
Okay. And if you're coming from Stanfield, making a right, coming up Stanfield, going to the right, okay, and you have the two lanes of traffic coming towards you, and if you want, well, actually, let's say you want to go straight from Stanfield, you have to navigate through the two lanes of traffic that are going straight to get around so you can go straight.
Correct. You yield to the traffic that's coming through the circle.
In
there's
the-
a
in
gap
the-
to cross.
Okay. I guess my concern would be, most of the traffic is coming on 41, as we already heard, and now you're going to make these people who are trying to go straight or even make a left. It's going to cause more issues, I guess, for those people getting through. Also, we talked that it's going to take longer for people to get through the intersection if you are on 41, and if you're coming from the west, that traffic is going to back up more. It already backs up during peak hours anyway, like around lunchtime, end of the day, beginning of the day. And now you're getting back towards that intersection, towards that light, people coming onto Meyer. It already comes pretty close to that sometimes. And now, if you're taking longer to get through that intersection, they may back up more. Now you're getting into that intersection, causing people issues coming out of Meyer, as well as making that left into the Meyer parking lot. Now you got traffic stopped up. You're trying to navigate through the stopped cars. You may not be seeing people in the other lane. So that's another concern. But my biggest issue with this intersection the way it is right now is trying to make the left from Stanfield onto 41 or from Experimental Farm making the left onto 41. It's very difficult to navigate that. I always avoid that anytime I can. If there was a way to fix that without making necessarily the roundabout, I would be in favor of that. I'm not against roundabouts. I have no issues with any of the ones that are here in town, so I will say that. The other concern, as you cause people to take longer to get through this intersection, it's obviously going to increase people's frustrations, which may lead to people, taking more chances, coming through the intersection, not giving yourself enough time to get through that because you've already waited there a long time. Now you're even later getting somewhere. So, that's, another concern with making people kind of wait longer to get through this intersection. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
Yeah, good clarification.
Yes.
I just want to clarify a question about that. We talked about timing of these lights. If a roundabout went in, would the timing of the lights on the other parts of Main Street, which is the main ones, change to adjust? So potentially keep some traffic from approaching a roundabout as people from Stanfield and Experiment Farm are waiting to get in.
What will be done if there's a roundabout installed is that the lights, the timing, the signal, the corridor will be adjusted. The timings of those, it'll be reviewed and potentially adjusted. I know that ODOT's made a comment very early on in the submission of this feasibility study about timing, and if the roundabout gets through, they did say it was more efficient. People will be getting through, and it'll still back up because of the timing of the signals downstream or upstream, depending on which way you're going. So the timings of the signals will be reviewed and more than likely adjusted.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, you had a question about traffic backing up. We did analyze signals outside of this one to make sure that there wasn't queuing that would back up beyond those. And both the signal and the roundabout alternatives that we analyzed with the updated timings and extra turn lanes do not back up into the adjacent intersections.
Hello. I live over in Carriage Crossing, and just adding a data point, I don't think it's an outlier. I think it's just a data point. My name is Bill Arthur.
Okay.
Yeah. And so my wife and I, we moved about 7 years ago, and we do walk along, used to be a serpentine across 41 trying to hit concrete. So appreciate that. That's working out really well for us. The sidewalk's nice. I can't wait for the rest of it. But when it came time to cross, would be Experiment Farm, that was sometimes challenging. And when we would have to come across the street before the sidewalks were put in, that was very challenging, right? So in support of you, I think there actually is some pedestrian traffic out there. We're just not a great number of us yet. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Dempsey. I live about 1,000 yards from here. I'm going to experience the new roundabout here at the facility here. And there's been a lot of good points brought up by the people tonight. And I can't disagree with them. I will tell you, though, I think you guys did your due diligence, no doubt about it. The numbers, I've heard those numbers before, and I've been somewhat in the same position you're in sometimes. I've had the pleasure of being around about 46 states in the United States, and I can't count on these hands how many roundabouts I've ever seen in 46 states. How many roundabouts are there in Ohio right now? We got 88 counties.
There's plenty of them in Dublin.
There you go. Good point. Good point.
I don't think they have a stoplight, frankly.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. They work in certain areas. But we know, and we all see it, you can't deny it, that people are not paying attention when they're driving. The following distance is horrendous. The people paying attention is horrendous. It's nice to try and get them to slow down and use the speed limit. But if you're coming east from Covington and it's 50 mile an hour and it should slow down to about 40 around Chapel Hill, I can guarantee you they're still going 45 to 48 mile an hour by the time they get to the Lowe's light, unless they stop. You know it and I know it. You see it every day. We see it everywhere. I'm not necessarily against roundabouts, but I want you to please look at all the different scenarios that people have told you. You live in this market. This is our town. We do not have 150,000 residents here. I think I heard the engineer say today that we're looking at about 31,000 people there on that intersection. What is it going to be 20 years from now? Is it going to be 60,000 people? The road's not going to get any better. Do you think people are going to drive slower? You're only drive slower because you're bumper to bumper by then. I'll give you an example. I ask each one of you to look online and look and see how many roundabouts there are in major municipalities and major cities. And I totally agree about Dublin. The state of New Jersey had 101 roundabouts. They started in 1920, and by the time 1970 came, they wanted to get them out of there. 44 of those 101 roundabouts were on state highways. Now, I'm talking about a state that has millions of people. If you think people in New Jersey are driving slower than you are completely crazy. Because they drive fast. 65 mile an hour is nothing. 85 is normal. It really is. Look online. New Jersey wiped them out because they just didn't work. The percentage of accidents increased. Now, whether it was fatalities or not, obviously they don't share a lot of that information. But there's no doubt about it, the accidents did happen. So I just want to say, hey, please do your research. I think you probably have already. You got some time. But the longer you wait, whether you approve this project or not, we all know prices are getting higher every day. If you think concrete and asphalt is going to be cheaper 2 years from now, and $4.2 million is enough, I'm sorry, can't agree with you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Jeff Negley. My wife and I live in the Stonebridge area on the west side of town. We kind of like roundabouts. Don't tell anybody. My question is, another place where I think could use a roundabout is at 41 and Washington Road. It looks like it would be easier to do, and it would slow the eastbound traffic down as it goes into all this other stuff we're talking about. And by the way, we go through the Dorset-McCaig roundabout quite a lot, almost daily. And every time we go through there, we get a warm feeling about how it works compared to when it used to be a four-way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Matt Breen. I live at 1435 Edinburgh Drive. I'll also say I'm in the minority. I'm in support of a roundabout there. I think it makes a lot of sense to reduce the number of harmful accidents to life and limb. I think that's always a good thing to improve on. I also did the quick math. If somebody is commuting through here on a daily basis, you're going through that intersection 50 days a year, or 50 weeks a year, and you end up saving about 2 to 2.5 hours of your time if you cut it down by 30 seconds every day. So if you're also talking about trucks coming through there and they save 30 seconds, if you have, say, 50 trucks coming in there, that's a pretty significant amount of time savings for your shipping and receiving. Seems to make a lot of sense for that. Other than that, I don't have any problem with the one on Dorset. I go through that one on a semi-regular basis, and as long as you know what you're doing, it seems to be just fine. Same thing with this design. As long as the traffic constricts, it's like when you walk through a hallway, and if it gets narrower, you slow down. Even little kids do that. If they're running through hallways, if there's stuff on the side, they still go fast, but they slow down because there's stuff in their way. So I think for a lot of reasons, this would make sense for us to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda Robbins. I live at 1222 Waterbury Place over here in Troy. My number one question is, in comparison to downtown, how big is this roundabout? Because, like, I go through the ones over, like, Columbus and Gahanna, and those things are, like, monster size. I mean, you could get half a city in them.
So we're 150 outside to outside, 150 feet. I'm trying to do a little mental math right now. Downtown roundabout, I know the inner circle is, with the downtown project, is being, I think that's like 110 to 120 feet. So we're 150, like, so when he says 150, for example, he's saying, like, all of these lanes going through, he's saying outside to outside. So, like, this lane coming through and this lane coming through. Outside to outside is 150, and I think downtown is 110 to 120.
So it's bigger.
It'll be bigger.
So it's bigger. It'll be bigger.
This one is bigger.
It's bigger, but not that much.
Not that much.
42.
So then I have, my concern is the trucks. Right now, those trucks can hardly make right-hand turns because there's just not enough room for them. I can't imagine them going around the circle.
So that will, the mountable curb will make a difference, but I do hear what you're saying. I see it. A lot of times it has to do with speed when they make that right-hand turn. A lot of times those semis, because I'm sitting in that.
Well, you know, if you go to the roundabout and like this shows, and I understand, like you're on the right and you have to go over to the left and then you come back to get into the circle, and I get that. That's going to slow traffic down.
Yep.
It's going to slow them trucks down. They're going to have a hard time, like, getting going again. You know what I mean?
I do hear you. Yeah.
And maybe, you know, I can't remember the city that's towards Springfield. I want to think it's like Northampton. They have a speed trap there.
Yeah.
Okay. If we would put Troy Police out there on Main Street by King's Chapel, my grandson works at Myers third shift. He's been there 5 years, and he goes into work at 9:30 at night, and the number of speeders, people with no headlights, red light runners, and you're not going to see Troy Police. They're just not around. I think if there was more presence out there, maybe people would slow down a little bit. People, they don't know how to drive roundabouts, and if you want a worst case scenario, go to Mesa, Arizona. They put in a roundabout with light rail going through the roundabout. So if light rail comes, you're stuck. It doesn't matter. But that's my only concern about that roundabout is those trucks.
Okay.
Can I ask Joe a real quick question?
Yes.
The 2023 study says there was an ICD of 160 feet. This is 150 feet. So did we reduce it by 10 feet?
No,
Obviously.
It's under 50 or 60. 150 came to mind. It could be 160. They're the same range. So
Okay, so the 2026 study didn't change the roundabout design from the 2023 study?
I thought it was 150, but it's 160, if that's what we had in the report.
Yeah, the 2023 report, I think ICD is what you're talking about, right?
Correct.
Yeah, is 160 feet according to the 2023 report.
Yeah, then I told her wrong. We haven't changed the outside circle, so.
Okay, so it's actually even 10 feet bigger than what
Correct, yeah.
was here, so.
I apologize for that.
No problem. Thanks.
Dan Swank, 702 Old Newton Pike in lovely Troy, Ohio. Before I start, I've heard things asked, and I don't think that there's a great explanation. I would love you to come up and explain semi-truck goes around, how long it will take, and how much of a disaster that is, or how well you've designed for that, please.
Sure. That's a common concern is trucks going through roundabouts. You see roundabouts that handle heavy truck traffic. The truck apron is designed. We have a program called Auto Turn, which sizes the truck from a 53 trailer. You can go down to a single axle unit. There's a wide variety of different vehicles that you can run through. Typically, a design vehicle is a WB62, which is a 48-inch trailer or 48-foot trailer. We know there's a lot of truck traffic here, so we actually use the WB67, which is the large interstate truck traffic. We modeled through every turning movement that you can go through here, and it fits without over-tracking the truck apron or the outside. If you look on the exhibit there, you have a wider right turn lane. That's to account for the swing path of the truck that's going out around there. What we would do on here that's not shown is add a striped out blister to keep the passenger cars in that 12-foot lane, but allow that truck to track over there. But yes, we account for all truck traffic movements. And it's a misconception that roundabouts can't handle truck traffic. They're designed, that's specifically why it's called a truck apron. It's for the trucks to track over that. So yes, they're accounted for.
So how long do you expect the truck to go around? 5 minutes to go around the circle? 5 seconds? Give an idea for the people.
They travel at the same speed as the car, so it's a 15-mile-per-hour design speed as they go, so they can travel at 15 miles per hour as they navigate the circle and exit. So they'd obviously take a second or two longer because they're a longer vehicle than a passenger car, but they travel at the same speed. They don't have to go slower or stop.
Thank you for that explanation. I know what fear and terror is of traffic circles. When I was in the 1970s, my first traffic circle I ran across was in Mexico City, and it was 4 lanes around, kind of like the Chevy Chase movie, and they enjoy 6 lanes of cars in 4 lanes going around the traffic circle. So after going around 7, 8, or 9 times after being inside stuck, the passenger with me quit screaming, and so we eventually got out, and I got to a residential area, and I shook for about 15 minutes with my nerves shot. So those of us that have our license from the 1960s and 1970s tend to have a different viewpoint than some people that have been raised and had roundabouts. I have been thrown in different experiences, and I lived in New Zealand for 18 months. And they started putting in the roundabouts and the traffic circles in 1960s and 1970s. And I will tell you, living there for 18 months, I never saw one traffic accident in a roundabout. It was all smooth. We never had backups. And let me tell you about trucks. We had those big logging trucks that are really wide, and they would go around the traffic circles. Things were not slowed down. They didn't have semis like we have here. But logging trucks take up a lot of space. They're the truck and then a trailer behind them, and they go through the traffic circles. It's correctly designed. And just for grins, New Jersey, I looked up while I was waiting, and yes, they got rid of all the old ones from 1920s and everything else, but they are putting in lots of new roundabouts now because they're properly designed. They're made to flow with traffic. And so I know what the fear and terror is, and I can understand why people are that way because they're not raised with them. They don't know them. And if I can give a short example from living in other areas that have traffic circles, the one we have on Dorset is too narrow. It's one of the most narrow ones I've ever been in. It is not properly designed, and it's a learning curve in what we do in anything we do in our life is we think we're doing okay, and we find out later, gee, I wish we could have done better. So from what I'm seeing on this study, I think this will be a great traffic circle, and the only suggestion, one of the problems we have is the way we do, training of anybody. How do you train somebody to properly use a traffic circle? So the one question that I really have is, well, the one thing I can say is if you're afraid of a traffic circle and it's 2 lanes, stay in the outside lane. You're not forced to go into the inside lane. Stay in the outside lane. You can go all the way around, or you can cut off where you want to. So that makes it easier. And you just know you go in on the left, you just go around. If you need to go around 3 times, go around 3 times. It's not a big deal. And there's no reason to panic. And so the other question that I have is to make some people a little bit more at ease. Is there any kind of signage for pavement of where arrows go? Is there any, the flashing lights or yield signs? With Dorset, consistently, there are people that think it's a stop sign. But you don't put a yield sign up. Do some things that put arrows in. Help people understand. And if nothing else, hold meetings like this and show people how they can be safer. And do a social or something. Do something to get people more confident. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can I say 2 things that I thought of about ideas when I was sitting there
Sure.
hearing all this? Possibly on this one too, especially if we use signals, maybe we could have just a left turn only on the that goes off. Really good signal right now that you guys have redone is right there at 25A where Walgreens is and stuff. And I'm not sure if that's 55 through there. That goes, but that sign, now the lights are so much better. And I think if they use, because they use the green light to turn left. And if you had it where you wouldn't have 1 or 2 people only get to turn left, because they're waiting for the people to go through, if you had that green light, just and have it green light only for left turns, that might help. Also, what you were saying with the sun shining, the blackout ones, where we can see them for sure. But I still think the signs would be so much better.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bruce Muir, 2750 Meadow Point Drive. First of all, thanks to the council for having this meeting, and thanks especially to the engineers for coming out and educating us on what all is involved with each of the choices. Great job. Thank you so much. I'm one of those weirdos, too, that I like traffic circles. I grew up in New York and New Jersey all my life till I was about 25 and joined the Navy. I can tell you that they work extremely well there. I would be in favor of it, but I have a quick question or 2 for you. First of all, the idea of signage. This fear of the center lane or the innermost lane. Is there going to be signage coming in there encouraging those going around 3/4 of the way to get the heck over to the center and make that a through?
Yeah, so we haven't obviously finalized the design because we're still at the point that we're trying to decide what we're doing as an improvement. But yes, we've talked about overhead signage. The biggest thing for a roundabout, Madison kind of pointed out one thing, and I forget exactly, but I was like, oh, that's like roundabout driving 101, is to choose your lane before you go in, right? And then we think the overhead signage will help, as well as pavement markings. And then the other thing, I know that there's been McKeag-Dorset discussion. We're adding signage, we're adding pavement markings, signage, yield, roundabout ahead. We're making some modifications out there to help that as well. So yes, we will definitely have signage. Yeah.
Thank you.
Then a concern, well, a data point, first of all, yeah, I'm another one of those weirdos that, yeah, I'm a pedestrian, I live there, and I go across there frequently, so any help you could give us as far as getting through there safely would be much appreciated. And a concern, finally, Stanfield and Experiment Road, particularly Stanfield, since I live down there. You mentioned before this is a balanced thing. It creates and I get that as far as traffic going through there and trying to balance but when you have an unbalanced traffic flow like we do here, Main Street flow compared to the Stanfield Experiment Road, it's my experience with traffic circles, if you're trying to come off of Stanfield, you're never going to get a break. You can only get into a traffic circle when there is a break. So I have a real concern, and I'm hoping you can address that, with if I'm coming up Stanfield, trying to get across to Experiment, trying to get into that traffic circle, and I'm sure your study was done during peak flow, I assume about 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Yeah. How am I ever going to get into that traffic circle? Because I think I'm going to be there a long time with the amount of flow going through Main Street, which was brought up earlier by someone. Can you help me understand how I'm going to do that?
Yeah. So what's unique about roundabouts is if you're waiting at Stanfield to go north, anyone that's turning left on West Main, they have to come across and they exit. So that blocks the West Main traffic to give you that gap to enter in there. Or if someone's coming on an Experiment Farm and going straight to Stanfield, that blocks the West Main traffic to give you that gap to go through there. And that's what our traffic models does. It analyzes the existing traffic. It takes into account turning movements that's happening out there currently and what's projected. And that's what the simulation shows is, hey, your average traffic has 120 left turners or whatever. So that accounts for that with the through traffic, and it models how they come to the intersection and weave together. And that's how we come up with the delays that you're having at the approaches. So once you take into account for the different traffic movements of the left and right and throughs, it calculates how long you're going to have to sit before you can get into there.
I love bottling. I hear what you're saying, but I've got 2 lanes of traffic coming down Main Street, and I'm going to wait for a break. If I'm going to go across to Experiment, I've got to wait for a break in 2 lanes, not 1. 2 lanes coming down Main, and
both lanes have to yield because you yield to traffic in the roundabout, right? So anyone that's in the roundabout circulating, they have right of way. So anyone that's circling, you can't enter until they clear.
Yeah.
Right? And then also, we look at traffic today as you're queued up from the red light, right?
Right.
Well, traffic, there's a constant flow of movement. So you don't have those long queues backed up like it is today. So it's not a big block of traffic that's coming through and you're waiting. You have traffic that's more trickling in, so that gives more gaps for you to enter in there.
Okay. Trust me. Very good. No, I have trouble wrapping my arms around a break when I know there's a steady flow normally going through that intersection down Main Street. I just have trouble seeing that break come. I hope you're right.
No, that's a valid concern, and like you said, the other examples that we had similar traffic flows like that, and they're breaks and gaps that allows traffic to get in there.
Thank you.
So we need to all take a field trip to Blue Ash.
Yeah.
Raphael Deschapelle, 3210 Dogwood Drive. Maybe I have missed completely everything. With either one, can someone tell me in 2029 when we start that project, where's the traffic going to go? How are we going to have anybody go anywhere? Thank you.
Yeah. So right now we're at the study phase, but as part of detailed design, you come up with a maintaining traffic plan. So you develop how to maintain traffic. You figure out how much traffic's going through there then, and you balance. Obviously you have to have temporary, like maybe instead of 2 lanes, it goes down to 1 while you're going through there. We're not in the detailed design phase of that yet, but that's how you would approach it, is that you're maintaining traffic through the intersection.
I understand that very well if you have the traffic light improvement.
Yeah.
If you do that, how are you going to maintain traffic? Please let me know.
Yeah, you can use temporary signals, or you can use temporary traffic there's ways to make.
When you start that whole project,
Yeah.
you're not gonna have a car going by there, unless you're doing the traffic light, and maybe you can maintain one going, one coming.
Yeah.
So in 2029, we stop the complete traffic in Troy.
No, that's not true. And with,
It might be slower.
I'm using examples from other cities. We haven't done the maintenance of traffic plan for this intersection, so that would be part of detailed design. But in other situations, if you have 2 lanes in each direction, you would restrict traffic to 1 lane through there to maintain through traffic. And then if you need to, again, once you get into detail analysis, you can understand if we have to provide left turns, then you can add a temporary signal. Sometimes you see those signals on carts, or sometimes there's a temporary span wire that they'll put across there to allow traffic to come in and out. But there's too much traffic on here to shut down the intersection like you're doing at Adams here right now, right? We can't do that. There's too much traffic. So there will be a maintenance of traffic plan to maintain access to all businesses, all residents, as well as through traffic that goes through there.
As good as 75 is right now?
Well, with any project, there's, it takes a little bit. I wish we could all just stop time and put it in there, but yes, there will be some traffic delay with construction, but ultimately you'll get a better product in the end.
So if I may, for example, if you're working on, like turning right onto Experiment Farm, you would probably have the right lane of 41 closed off and direct everybody through the left lane to go. Is that kind of what you would envision, is trying to just split between lanes?
And generally speaking, like I said, you have to go through the design process to see what space is available and whether you need sometimes you had temporary pavement outside of what's in here to maintain that traffic. But again, we're at the conceptual stage. We haven't gone to the detail analysis. But to ease your fears, yes, we've done traffic in more areas that have more traffic in this and have been able to maintain traffic through there.
I have a question. I'm going to go up here. This is more practical than even dealing with what we have. So if Chick-fil-A is right here, right?
There. Yes. It's still going to exit out to where it is.
Chick-fil-A, where is it going to exit out? Chick-fil-A exit out to the, It does not exit out onto West Main right now. It exits out on the inner.
Oh.
So its exit at Meyer doesn't change, correct?
Correct. Its exit with Meyer does not change. Into Meyer does not change. Yeah.
Just like it does now.
Which is what they do now, yeah.
If these have 2 here, you already can't go out that way.
Why not?
Why can't you?
During certain times, traffic does back up.
Turn left now.
I think that's what he's saying.
You can't turn left coming out of Chick-fil-A now. It's still that wedge. It's there now.
You would just come out on Stanfield and go into the roundabout to get...
Well, you come out on Main.
Well, yeah, but if you want to turn left, you can't turn left out of that driveway. You have to either go down to Lowe's or you have to come out on Stanfield.
It wouldn't be a meeting. It would not.
Just to finish up,
You've been paid. Yeah, thank you, Steve.
there's more than 2 options here. There's 3. And the third one is don't do anything for right now. That's free. Okay? Don't assume that the only thing you got to do is decide between 2 $4.2 million projects. Quite frankly, for me, my age, I don't care what the circle looks like in 2049. Okay? If I'm here, then I want to stand in the middle of it and either say hurrah, good job, or give you the finger for doing it, taking it too long.
He's also on the list for McCaig, Dorset.
Yeah.
Was that the Hendricks Memorial statue, Bill?
Well, yeah. Well, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, we're talking about $4.2 million to either spend it or not spend it, and it's not. We have to do one or the other.
No, you don't. That's up to you. Now, I understand $2.5 million's coming from the state, and there's an Easter Bunny fund that we got here in the city that somehow figures out it's not going to impact taxpayers, which is kind of amazing to me. But anyway, I want you to consider that, okay? I quite frankly, I see the beauty in both of these options. I think, it's hard to say based on the experts and everything that, that this won't work. Either one will work. It depends on the drivers. We all have sat behind people going through a circle, and some people are just completely dumbfounded about what they're supposed to do. Now, this is going to be the same way for quite some time. The other thing, looking 20 years ahead, is maybe by that time, every single business here will be out of business. Everything will get delivered by Amazon. Everybody here remember Kmart?
Yeah.
It's gone. There's lots of things that are gone. General Motors went bankrupt. Chrysler went bankrupt. To think that these businesses around here can't fail. Chick-fil-A is wonderful right now. Will they be here 20 years from now? And the answer is, you don't know and I don't know either. So the idea is like, oh, it's going to grow. That's a great dream, and I share your hope for that. But it may go the other way. We may be flying around in 20 years. And maybe Amazon's going to have delivery from food to everything else. They may take over from Wally World, and everything is going to get delivered by a helicopter. I don't know. So I understand the view that, oh, it's going to grow. It may not. So I want to keep that in the back of your mind. Be realistic about the decisions you're going to make. It's going to have a long-range impact. And the problem is you don't know what the long range is any more than I do. Okay? Or the experts do. They don't know any more than the rest of us. They probably all invested in General Motors like the rest of us. And it all went away. So anyway, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you making this an open session. And better yet, for the public to show up, which is just, I think, absolutely wonderful. So exactly. Thank you for all showing up today. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can adjourn now.
We got some more people.
Not last one.
A few more.
So, David Griggs, out on 2813 Wagon Wheel. Appreciate the information on the construction because I live out there. I have to go through this every day going anywhere. So I'm very concerned that it's closed down. I've seen other constructions. I lived 20 years behind another roundabout at an old house. It's fine. It gets used to it, right? I'm not too worried about that. The other thing that has bothered me ever since moving out here 4 years ago is all the truck traffic. And there's no way for Honda and Pella and all the other warehouses off Stanfield in that area to get back to the highway other than this one route. Why has any consideration been given to open a southern route down to 55 to allow trucks to get another way in and out of this area, a little less commercial for the trucks? I think the truckers would like it if they didn't have to go through a high commerce district.
So I know we have used McKeag a little bit.
Yeah, Honda uses the McKeag quite a bit. There has long been some discussion, not about opening up anything on the south because that might get more congested, but the long range is not even on the tip because it would be a massive project. Is studying the possibility of another interchange north of 41 in the Eldine, north of the Eldine area.
Yeah, up by the data center.
We won't use those words. We do not have a data center coming to Troy. I wanted to get that on the record. So that is something that has been talked about, but it's very, very preliminary, and that would take a long time.
But I'm just thinking if there's, especially during the construction, I kind of see there's a dedicated right from Stanfield to 41 here going in, then that would I think help a lot exiting trucks. It's just the trucks coming in going to Honda seem to be the problem, making that left.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm okay with it. Okay with it. Just make it easy for us to get to home and out. Thank you.
Mr. Titterington, haven't we kind of requested trucks to take Experiment Farm to Farrington and go out that way, but we can't really force them to do that?
No. Prior to this is probably close to 20 years ago, when they lengthened the drop lane eastbound on West Main Street to go then southbound onto 75. That was a big project. It was almost 20 years ago. They were going, I think they were going more through McKeag, and that was when it was a four-way stop, so it was a lot worse. But as far as pushing them up that way, no, I don't think anybody's been encouraging them. Now, the truckers, they're still using CBs, if anybody remembers those. And so they have one heck of a network. And if they're seeing backups, they're better than Waze or any of those GPS systems at telling each other which direction to route around. So they're going to go the path of least resistance, and they're also going to know where there might be turns that are too sharp, because in that area you might have the offset intersections that might not be easy for those big 18-wheelers to navigate.
Mr. Schilling.
Having been here a while, Farrington, if you go up there, Experiment Farm to Farrington, where Experiment Farm dead ends in Farrington, that interchange was improved dramatically, with the idea that when Honda first got here, that their trucks were not to turn right onto West Main Street and go to the interstate there, to go all the way up to Farrington and then turn right and use that interchange right close to Farrington. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars redoing that, widening Farrington. It's two lanes there, and of course Experiment Farm widens out there, the same thing, and nobody's ever used that.
We're not that city.
Well, and there was a combination because Honda was moving in. Because I remember the conversations they had back in 1978. It was a joint venture between the state and the city and everything else that the trucking was supposed to go up that way, and they never did. But that's why Farrington looks the way it does at Experiment Farm, was the idea that the trucks from that, exactly where you're talking about, Pella and all those other places, they could have gone north, but they just never did.
Well, okay, so once you get to just before the corporate line north on Experiment Farm, that road narrows. And so I'm going to have to beg to differ on us pushing them that way, but I do know that when I believe Honda had just made an expansion 20 years ago, that the state stepped in, and we didn't pay any money towards it.
No.
But that's when they took a serious look at that drop lane that I mentioned, and that's when we and the state all talked to Honda to make sure that the drivers knew to go that direction rather than out the McKeag roadway. Farrington, I don't remember that ever being brought up. If it was, then it was quite a bit earlier than I was here and paying attention.
Yeah, but I mean that's why the intersection looks the way it does today. When you get to Farrington Experiment Farm Road, I mean, there's a lot of extra room up there, and that's essentially designed for the trucks coming from Honda to use that, because they normally would head north towards their manufacturing plants up in Anna and that area.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
No problem. You patiently waited.
Thank you. My name's Carol Parrish, Cartwright Court in McKeag. and I live directly across the street from the new school on the West Elementary new school going in. And my concern is with regards to the trucks as well and the routing that they are going to potentially take if they're not happy with the roundabout. They already kind of use 718 or McKeag. McKeag and Dorset, the semis cannot go around that curve to get to McKeag, to get to Honda. I've seen and witnessed it, sitting at the roundabout and a semi trying to come through there and trying to make the turn to go. He just ended up going straight and ended up on 41 anyway. He just couldn't do it. So I don't want them coming by me because we already have a lot of traffic, more than most people probably even think about until you live there. And there's also a grade school that's going to be there, K through 4th. So that is a really bad thing for them to decide they don't like the roundabout. Let me see what other options I have. And then thinking that 718 to McKeag or something like that is a better option, because it's certainly not going to be. So that's my 2 cents. Yeah. And I would like to know, when does the decision have to be made for this to be done or not done? Is there like a date stamped that we have to have a decision by such?
I don't think there's a set in stone date, but it is relatively soon because we do have a lot of
the funding and so forth.
Yeah, we've got a lot of process to go through to get to the detailed design, then get it out to bid, then, the construction. So there's this is probably 10 years in the making already. Mm-hmm. And getting to the 2028, 2029 construction schedule, because you're dealing with ODOT, and I won't blame ODOT because it's a federally controlled project, really. There's a long lead time, so the sooner the better. Not tonight, of course, but
okay.
There's
not a set. Okay, we got to decide by October 1st or whatever.
I think there's a realistic timeline in our minds, but we'll make a decision. I can't speak for the council, but encouraging them to make one before October 1st.
Okay. Yeah. And if and when a change is made, approximately how long do you expect the construction process to take?
That will depend on the bidder, the successful bidder, and what plan they put in. That'll be part of our evaluation process as we go through with whatever bids come in.
Okay.
So that's down, pardon the pun, down the road. So.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing anyone else, I would like to, once again, as other people, thank the public to come out. I think you came out, you showed an effort to not sit home on social media and listen to your friends and say, this is what they said. You guys put the effort out to come out and find out what the consultants have presented. So hopefully, if you hear something that's in error, please correct those people. Other than that, I wish we could wave a magic wand and people would not be afraid of the roundabouts and stuff. Council will have a decision soon, I would think, coming up, what option to go to meet administration's deadlines. And with that, our next council meeting is July 6th, huh? 6th. July 6th, 7 o'clock, City Hall, second floor. You're all welcome.
Please come. We're banking on it. We're hoping.
Thank you for coming.
Banking on it.